All right, good afternoon and welcome to another exciting edition of StandPoint. I am Veronica Dan-Ikpoyi. It is the first edition of the program in the new year, and I must say a happy new year to you all. Today we will be looking at expectations of Nigerians from the government in this new year, as well as preparations for the 2019 election. With me in the studio is a presidential aspirant, Ahmed Buhari, and a social commentator, Bolaji Shuneye. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, good morning.
All right. And now, for many Nigerians, the year has not started on a good note. With the recent increase in the pump price of fuel, they say it will only add to the sufferings of the masses as many civil servants across the struggled to make ends meet in 2017 due to unpaid salaries and high cost of living. The expectations of Nigerians from government at all levels this year are high. They want the government to fix the economy, create jobs, and reduce the number of unemployed persons in the country. And they want the minimum wage increased. They also want government to tackle insecurity and curb kidnapping. But for many, the recent fuel price hike may have just signaled the beginning of a tough year. Would government be able to meet up with these expectations, or not, are Nigerians asking for too much? Well, before I take that question, I'll start with you, Ahmed. What are your expectations for the year 2018 from the government?
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. First of all, I think I'll speak on the position of every other Nigerian, which obviously is demanding for a good living, a better life. Currently, we drove into the new year with a price hike, and just recently, the killings in parts of the country has increased. And I just listened to the IG of police call it a mere ethnic and communal clash. More than anything else, what a government should be giving to its people is security and economic viability. When these two things are missing, then obviously you're not meeting up with what the people really, truly demand.
Would we really call it a price hike, or the fact that there was a challenge, fuel scarcity, and then the price actually spiked?
Yes.
So,
however you want to look at it, if we didn't have this price hike or this fuel scarcity a few months ago, it means that currently there's something that's about to happen. Either the people are having this feeling of, oh, there's going to be a price hike because we're not able to manage the logistics involved in ensuring that Nigerians buy this fuel at 145 naira or thereabout. Or is it that the government truly wants to make more money for itself as it drives into the election year? All these fears, the fears that people are actually harnessing in their minds. And we have to, as a matter of urgency, bring the government to account to understand that, look, the reason why you're there is to cater for our comfort. When we don't feel all of those things happening, we are bound to react negatively.
All right, Bolaji, the president, kick-started this year for Nigerians with his speech where he said that 2018 promises to be pivotal to the change we need or require as Nigerians. What do you make of that statement?
Firstly, I must say that the president had made a series of promises, really, since he became president in 2015, and less actions have been seen by Nigerians, though there are notable achievements in some areas. In the area of security, talk about Boko Haram, they made some achievements, but yet there are flaws as well. In talk about the headsmen's killing, talk about ethnic clashes, and claiming so many lives and properties. It's like one step forward, two steps backward. And I must say, many Nigerians are seeing the president's comment as more like a political statement to probably woo people to his side.
Is that what you see it as?
That's what a lot of Nigerians are saying it. But talking about how I say it, I would think it's more of a balance of both. The president is trying to reassure the economy, reassure the people that things are going to get a lot better. But I must say that in the real sense on the field, it's not playing out that way. The hardship we got into and a lot of other events even before now is not really giving the people the kind of confidence they had when they started out with this government earlier in 2015.
So if I stay with you, are you saying that we don't have the structure in place to run with, to see the change or the quest for the change we require for 2018? Is that what you're saying?
Really, we could actually get some changes, yes, because definitely these are the kind of times the president or the government want to put his foot down, you know, to make some things work so that it could find some soft landing by next election.
Soft landing for the next election. Do you share the same view, Ahmed? Is that what it is? Because from the president's statement, do we have the structures or are we looking for soft landing?
First of all, we don't have the structures.
To make 2018, to get that change, pivotal change?
Absolutely. So when you start off a journey, you can tell how the end is going to be dependent on how well you put your structure in place. Is either you're going to get a good car, or you're going to take your car for servicing, or you ensure that you have some money to spend along the way. But when all those things are not there, you do not see clearly how 2018 is going to become a better year than the previous years. What I'm just saying is simple. I expected this government, when it got into office, when it got into position, to, at a matter of urgency at that time, to put in structures. Nigeria can work if we have the relevant system. The system is faulty, whether it's been the educational system, whether it's been the health sector, whether it's been the insecurity that we're currently experiencing. And like he mentioned very clearly, we've taken a step forward to curb the Boko Haram menace, but it seems like the Boko Haram people have spread into other places and then the killings have continued. And what we're expecting is, if, for example, we want to tackle the current insecurity situation in the country, I expect that by now we should have a proper data management system that accounts for every single Nigerian, so that when you see somebody that does not belong to this country, he's either going to be telling you exactly when he came to this country, how long he intends to remain in this country, and when he intends to leave. Then you know who is who. And for me, I think if you want to curb this Fulani herdsmen situation, which some people will tell me, Allah will tell you they're not Fulani herdsmen, fine, build these ranches. It is imperative that these ranches are in place to ensure that every cattle that is supposed to be roaming the roads, not just the herdsmen killing people, but the cattle crossing the roads, causing accidents and things like that. Let's put them in ranches and ensure that we have a better way to tackle whatever is left that is killing our people.
Well, sticking with you, Ahmed, and still talking about expectations from the president's speech, he said Nigerians can be very impatient and want to improve the conditions faster than may be possible, looking at our resources, the resources at our disposal and the conditions and our capabilities. Now, is that the case? Are Nigerians being impatient?
Nigerians have never been patient with any administration like it is with this particular one. When this administration was about to come on board, it did mention to us that there was nothing like subsidy. A few months into the administration, he told us that, oh, fine, right now we're going to remove subsidy and you're going to be buying fuel from 87 naira to 145 naira. We didn't say anything. We moved from that and we waited for about 6 months before ministers were being appointed. And that took us a whole lot of time where there were no economic activities. Foreign investors were running away from us. We didn't even know if we had a direction. We've come to another year, and we're experiencing fuel scarcity. We're experiencing a possible fuel hike. We're also experiencing deaths around the country. I still do not have electricity. I'm sure I came in here and I saw your studio is still running on generators. So all of those things that we were promised that actually lured us into supporting this administration have not been presented before us, and we have every reason to ask. We have to understand that as the electorate, we put people into office because we believe that they have our interests at heart. And when we do not see that interest being glaring coming out from the system, we are bound to ask. If you expect that people will not complain, even if you're pinching them, then you know something is wrong. I expect that this administration should understand that criticisms are not wrong. They're just guidelines to help you perform better.
So I'll come to you now. Is it the same? Do you share the same view that Nigerians have been patient, or are we being impatient? I
would say that really Nigerians have actually been very patient with this government, like they were with the first government in 1999. They were a lot patient with that government as well, and I must say this government also enjoyed that from Nigerians, really. And in terms of patience, I also see growth or growth path to be not something that would happen in a hurry. Okay, sometimes it takes years, it takes several months for some policies to start to work, you know. And I must say that Nigerians are really, really wanting to be part of this growth. They want to be part of this change, imminent ones. But we cannot also take the fact that there are some people with some motives in this government. We've had a series of issues of cabals and we hear something from presidency, then we hear something else from another place. We've had ministers being blocked from seeing the president. And when things are not working this way, it looks like we're now building more of people than systems. And in an environment where systems are not built, where a structure or a system is run around one person, we've had scenarios whereby some people are even being accused of being fraudulent, but yet till date, they have still getting protections. We talk about the pensions issues, and we still hear stuff like either the DSS is preventing EFCC from making arrests and all of this. I must say, Nigerians are frowning at this. And 2019, it's going to be a lot different in terms of voters' decision, I must say.
We'll come to that then. If the Nigerians are frowning with the way we have been doing things, the president made a statement about the need to change our ways of doing things, and so that we can lift people from poverty. How do you marry this with the statements or with what you just said in the terms of changing things? Are we really looking at changing the ways we are doing things? Is that what the government has been doing?
It would have been a very good thing if these changes will be for real and will be true and will be thorough. Okay, it's not just about saying you want to make these changes, it's about making these changes and then making it stay. Sometimes you could make changes for a temporary reason. You know, there are times you bait people, and I must say Nigerians are a lot sensitive now. They want to see if the president's statements and his comments were just a bait to draw them to his side, or probably whatever changes they are making will it be permanent. All right.
All right. Do you share some views, Ahmed?
Well, you know, I'm just going to be honest with you. I really don't know how to beat around the bush and speak about these things. I just hit the nail on the head. But to be very frank with you, there are two things why we voted for this administration. First, we wanted security to come back to the country. So we wanted Boko Haram to be totally wiped out. The second one was because we were so sure that this administration was going to fight corruption. But I would like to think that it's so hard to fight corruption in a system that has allowed people to be corrupt. And
so, what do you mean?
So once the system is not properly checked, once the right apparatus are not in place to stop people from stealing. So I'll give you an example. If you go to the bank, there are no people in this world that see money as much as the bankers. But they don't put their hands into the money that's passing in front of them and put in their pockets, because there is a system that checkmates them. Those kind of systems are the kind of systems that we should put into our civil service, into our administration, into every single thing that runs our country, so that people will see this money and not be tempted to touch it, first. And then secondly, you have to put the right judiciary in place, so that even when they touch it, the judiciary must act and act in favor of the people. But when you have brought this administration into office for these reasons, and yes, Boko Haram, like you mentioned, truly has been held onto a corner. What we used to experience a bomb blast in a mosque every Friday, another bomb blast in the church every Sunday. We don't get all of those things anymore. They just bits and pieces of attacks here and there, which I believe is as a result of the system being so loose. What I mean by a system being so loose, when you don't know who is coming into your country, when you cannot even tell if this is a Nigerian or not a Nigerian, those kind of things are bound to happen. So what systems are we putting in place to ensure that we tackle all of these things? I'm coming to your question, which of course you're trying to find out. Do I really think that we are experiencing the change, and are we patient enough? Are we being patient or being too... our agitation.
Change our ways.
Yes, are we going to change our ways? Yes, we can change our ways if we start seeing that those people that have been handpicked by the system to say they have been corrupt have been prosecuted. When we see prosecution really happening, people are going to jail, people are being locked up. There is no way all of it will trickle down to the people. But when all of those things don't happen, when this administration came on board, a lot of people were very, very scared to do anything wrong because they felt they were going to be hooked with the law. It hasn't happened. Corruption continues. And also, like he mentioned something very important. The different arms of government, whether the judiciary, whether the executive, whether the legislature, and the security apparatus, we haven't seen a harmony. When we see prosecution really happening, people are going to jail, people are being locked up. There is no way all of it will trickle down to the people. But when all of those things don't happen, when this administration came on board, a lot of people were very, very scared to do anything wrong because they felt they were going to be hooked with the law. It hasn't happened. corruption continues. And also, like he mentioned something very important. The different arms of government, whether the judiciary, whether the executive, whether the legislature, and the security apparatus, we haven't seen a harmony. This party A is talking about this, party B is talking about this, party C is talking about this. They don't seem to be on the same page. If they can't be on the same page, how do they intend to govern the people? So the country seems to be more divided now than ever. And all of those things that we thought we could actually mend, whether it be a difference in ethnicity, religion, tribe, and gender, social status, and political party affiliations, are even more deeply rooted now. And I am worried, because if we do not start getting the right body language and the right system in place, we may just be heading for a very, very disastrous era.
Is it too late? Because this is the beginning of a year.
It's not too late. Things can always change. Nigerians are very patient people, contrary to how we were being labeled. I think we're very, very patient people, and I think that our patience shouldn't be taken for granted. We shouldn't be taken for granted, but at least we should be appreciated, and more than anything else, give us hope, understanding, and we should communicate with the people, let them understand where you're really headed. So I understand that recovery processes take a long time, but as much as we're waiting for that recovery process to happen, let's have things in the interim that will at least give the people some succor.
Speaking about process, Bolaji, the president said he had been listening to the debate on restructuring, but that he believes strongly that what we need is a process rather than the debate on restructure.
I actually disagree a little, because I am a fan of restructuring. And not just because I'm a fan of restructuring, I see it as actually one of the ways forward. When there is too much power at the center, we still stand to continue to have cases of having people becoming too powerful, even than the system itself. Okay? If we restructure, if there is some decentralization, okay, things would improve. There will be a lot of even checkmating from the people. Unlike now, how many Nigerians can really get to the federal government to ask many of the questions, to put more pressure, and even it's a lot difficult. But when decentralization comes, people can press directly on their immediate governments or those that are closer to them. And then our resources are being managed, mismanaged, and all of that will be more opened. I want to believe that restructuring is still a better system or a better way for things to work than saying that we should just remain as it is. You don't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. Yep.
So you want to comment on that?
Seriously, it's the only way forward. We've got to restructure. And when we talk about restructuring, people should dissociate their minds from thinking this part is going to go there and the other parts, the north is going to go there, the south is going to go there, or the east is going to go there. No, that's not what it means. It means that the system has to change. So a decentralized system of government is what we need right now. Okay, right now, if I ask you, why are we pointing fingers to the president on the issue in Benue? And people will say, because it's the president. Why can't we point our fingers to the governor who has sworn to protect the lives and property of the people of his state? Because it is his first responsibility to ensure that that happens. But he's unable to do that because the system does not allow him to have total control over the security apparatus in his state. So we have to look beyond all of this and start asking ourselves, how do we want to ensure that a state governor has power within his jurisdiction to ensure that he's able to implement his primary responsibility to his people? How does the local government chairman is being positioned in such a way that he has autonomy over the area he covers and not necessarily waiting for something to happen from the center? How do we now start thinking, even if you have solid minerals in each state and in different states, how are we prepared to allow the state to run these issues so that they can actually pay taxes or royalties to the government when they make money? We should also ask ourselves, when we talk about power, for example, the reason why the power cannot work is because it's too much centered in the center. It's held by the federal government, and the federal government does not have the capacity to ensure that it generates and distributes. If you can actually generate power, distribute power, by all means, the law should allow you commercialize it. All it needs to do is to ensure that you do it within the framework of safety and every other thing that will ensure that it doesn't become hazardous to the society. And we can tax you. And other businesses will spring up naturally because there's enough power to go around. And you can tax them and the government becomes richer. But we're in a situation where 60–70% of my earnings is going back into running of power to ensure that my business stays, then I'll be very reluctant to even pay taxes or close down my business. So we need to start thinking of decentralization and ensure that, you know, the government, the center should just be a supervisory body over every other thing that is happening, as opposed to holding on to everything and you're not able to hold it properly because it's too heavy.
All right, we'll take a quick break and the discussion will continue when we return. Stay with us. All right, you're still watching StandPoint, and we still have our guests in the studio. Before we went on break, Bolaji, we were talking about the president talking about we need more of process reform than restructuring. And then he mentioned some issues where he talked about the issues in Benue, why the state governor is handicapped, so to speak, not to be able to address the issue because of some of the things on the exclusive lists. And we also have the concurrent list. Now, looking at the fact that the president, also in his speech, talked about we doing things differently. What would you feel should be moved from the exclusive list to the concurrent?
All right, looking at things that could be moved from the exclusive list to concurrent list, I must say that one has to have a full detail of what they have in the exclusive list.
No, let's look at the issue of state policing and the likes, power. These are the major things that affect Nigerians.
The clamor for state police had been on for a long time, I must say, and it's long overdue, really. If there had been state policing, a lot of security challenges would have been tackled better because we would have more of police that knows their localities or that knows people actually that lives in their immediate environments. You have local spies. You have people that even just local informants that would assist the security network. You would have it even more decentralized, I must say, because right now we've had series of cases even that is popular and we cannot deny it, where they pull off the securities of a governor. If the securities of a governor can be pulled because security is not controlled by him, or at least by the states, then how much more we average Nigerians? What do you expect from us, really? Then talking about power and other stuffs like that, I must say the center is holding on too many things. There are some things that should be allowed to go, I must say. There are some things that should be allowed to go so that the center can focus on national security. If state policing is being allowed to operate the way it should, although it could also be abused anyway, and but that will be tackled as the system starts to allow it. Whatever challenges and problems that are encountered in that area, people would actually raise alarms, and then this will actually be addressed. Okay. And looking at power, I must say, power should have been long ago decentralized, I must say, because there are some states that could get investors to come into this. But because it's looking like it's controlled from the center, you have to be that powerful to do it. And even some state governments are so discouraged. I remember there was a time the governor of Lagos State, Raji Fashola, tried to set up some equipment to generate power and everything. But I must say, many of this...
You have to feed the center.
Yeah.
The national grid.
The national grid, yes.
Okay, and all of this is not really helping, I must say. Every average Nigerian, we run almost like a government ourselves. You provide power in your house, you provide your own shelter, you provide your own water, and all of this, and I must say there is, anyway, let me give some little credence. Yeah, your own security. But I'd like to give little credence to the Minister of Power now. He's trying his best, at least remove all of this fixed charge where people get to pay for what they don't use. But gradually, if it had been decentralized, I believe more achievements would have been made in this area, really.
All right, now let's move to the economy. The president spoke about the government being able to slowly stabilizing the economy through its diversification efforts and an economic recovery plan and the rest of that. But from what you have said, looking at the economic situation, Ahmed, I'm talking to you now, the fact that some governors still go to the center to get what they need to get to, help their states. And we had issues where some state governments could not pay salaries, and we're still facing these issues. How can we really stabilize the economy where we still do same things the same way?
You're correct. We're still facing the same issues we've always been facing. And one of the assurances that this administration gave us was, when we do come into power, we're going to ensure that we look into all the sources of revenue, which of course has to be, diversification of the economy, agriculture. And then when they came on board, I started hearing that they were exporting yams. And I was disheartened, because when you export unprocessed produce from Nigeria, you're not just exporting it at a lower value, but you're also exporting jobs. You're also exporting human capital. This is how I think it should work if you really want to diversify, for example, agriculture. You think about ensuring that you provide farms, markets, farmers with mechanized system of farming, with all they need to do to yield maximum productivity, and then you start arranging yourself to think about what happens when this produce is ready at the farm gates. How do you move from the farm gate to the storage facility? How do you move from the storage facility down to the processing plant? How do you move from the processing plant down to the packaging? How do you move from the packaging down to the
final consumers?
The packaging, and then the branding and all of that, and then to the final consumers. At that stage, you're not only going to be releasing the produce to the people, or the product to the people as at when because of course you have an idea. Again, no proper data to even know how many Nigerians we're talking about. And so when I hear them preparing budgets, I'm like, preparing budget for how many people? Preparing budget for who? Do you know how many Nigerians do you have and you're preparing budget? If you ask the Minister of Interior, he tells you about 186. You ask the other person, he tells you 190. Some people say, oh, we're even less than that. So if we do not know how many people, we cannot even be so sure from the storage that we have. How do we now move these products into the system to ensure that Nigerians, first and foremost, are belly full? And when we're belly full, then you cannot be talking about shipping these things out of the country. And I'll give you an example with that same tuber of yam. If you look at the tuber of yam, there are extracts from that yam that you can use in the pharmaceutical companies, they can use in the cosmetic companies. And when you now look at how those people who buy these tubers of yam process it in their own countries, you will now realize that they actually make more money as it's supposed to happen. And then you talk about the solid minerals, and then you say, fine, let's move to solid minerals. This country, the entire Kogi bedrock, I am a geologist by training, the entire Kogi basement, the Niger State basement, down to Benue, we have different natural resources, from marble to iron ore to gold to tin to clay. You can do a lot with these things. Some countries have none of these things, but we have them. But because it's still being controlled by the center, these state governors, if truly they want to do something, are unable to do so because the system does not allow them to do that. It doesn't have to be the government doing these things. You can actually invite foreign investors to come in. You can actually put a proper plan together and bring private investors in your own country to ensure that they invest in this kind of things, in as much as you're giving them a good security, a good promise, a good assurance, and a system that will ensure that they're not going to be losing out of a deal with the government. Speaking
about investment, before we move on now, Bolaji, you know that we are the eve of an election year. 2018, 2019 is just ahead of us. And somehow people believe that economic activity will be slowly winding down because people want to see the policies and what will be happening since we are planning towards an election year. How do we attract FDIs at this time for the country?
One, looking at the election year coming in, I must say that a serious government should actually stand its foot down to make sure things change. In fact, a lot better, at least some percentage improvements, if not turning things around. Definitely, we don't expect things to be turned around in such a short period of time. But looking at how things could have improved, but really, in the Nigerian perspective, when we get into an electioneering year or some months into electioneering year, the first thing we start to experience is a reduced flow of cash, reduced flow of, I must say, money in circulation, and this keeps the people still below the poverty line. And if this continues to remain, even FDIs foreign investors or even local investors would not be encouraged, because once the environment is not enabling, once the environment still looks like someone can hold it by the jugular, once he knows what he wants to achieve next, it's really appalling. And I must say that a lot of Nigerians would vote differently this time.
Okay, I was going to ask that. We did set the ball rolling for their decision for 2019.
Of course, of course. As a matter of fact, this current administration would not enjoy the kind of acceptability, the kind of votes they get, the kind of support, both moral and a lot in terms of what will happen in next election. People, because it's a lot easier when you've not had the opportunity to run a system.
But we can't categorically say, you know. But let's just hear from Ahmed now. Looking for the same question I asked him, how do we attract FDIs in an electioneering year, so to speak?
Okay, I know in the last 30 minutes we've been on the offensive. Can we just really talk about solutions? Because at the end of the day, this is not really about us anymore. We're actually winding down. It's about our children and children's children.
That's what the question is about.
Yes, you know, so I'm really concerned. And I think if things have got to work, I expect that this administration right now should be thinking of probably shaking down its cabinet, do a shuffle of the ministers, bring in policies that are going to give the people immediate succor, do not increase the fuel price, you know, change your body language, review the tax regime, encourage businesses, start shaking down some of the policies like introduction of other sources of power. We can actually go to windmill. We can talk about... We
have Katsina already generating 10 megawatts.
Yes, but it's obviously we can see that it's not enough. If Katsina can do that, that means Sokoto can do that, that means Jigawa can do that, that means many other states can do that. And this encouragement has to be there. These are the things that foreign investors look at. These are the things that businessmen look at and say, okay, fine, you've boosted my confidence. And also the government should be open to talk to people. There should be more engagement with not just the press, but also with different bodies that will probably want to advise, not just advise, but build their confidence based on the questions that bothers them.
Okay, now let's move on. The 2019 general election is getting closer in about a year from now. Nigerians will head to the polls to elect those who will lead them for another 4 years. Soon, persons interested in running for political offices will officially announce their interests, and the political race will begin in earnest. Some politicians have already started making moves, strategizing and aligning themselves with persons and parties they feel will lead them to victory at the polls. But it appears 2019 will come with a lot of surprises as Nigerians, especially the young ones, are becoming more politically aware, signaling interest to contest for different political offices. They say it will not be business as usual. Are we about to see a political revolution come 2019? I'll start with you, Ahmad.
Well, I don't know why you're starting with me.
You should know why.
Because Mr. Shune has got more on this particular topic. But on a serious note, yes, it's not going to be business as usual. We become more politically aware. Many people are asking deep questions. And this is what I'm going to say. Nothing will change if the process that delivers us the leaders that we have doesn't change. So the reason why political office holders will get into office and are unable to meet with our expectations is, for one, it's either the people start deciding to pay for the kind of democracy they want or be paid for the kind of democracy they get.
Pay? How do you mean?
Good. So when you see an aspirant, you should be more concerned about what he's going to do when he gets into office, what policies he has. You can actually call a community meeting or a town hall meeting around your locality and say, come, we're inviting you on the 14th of this month by 2 p.m. Come and trash your things out with us. Come and tell us what plans you have. Come and tell us how you intend to achieve this. And you must be realistic. So the people hear you and believe, fine, we think this guy has got something to offer. Or this other one hasn't got anything to offer. And so you're not just voting based on whether he's from your tribe or your religion or some other kind of affiliation, but you're more concerned about his competence and his ability to deliver. That is how you pay for the kind of democracy you get.
How do you measure competence? How do you measure what his ability to deliver? Because, Balaji, Nigerians seem to have heard everything.
No. Well, sorry.
No, don't worry, take it.
We haven't heard everything, as a matter of fact.
Are you sure?
I'm
let
sure.
me get Bolaji's view. How do you measure competence? How do you measure ability to deliver? By just listening to a speech.
Okay.
Or policies.
We have to start from a process that actually avails us the opportunity to be able to either select or at least have access to know more about those that are presenting themselves for this service to the people. Okay, let me put it this way. I would like to borrow the words of Malam El Rufai that says the most beautiful woman in the world is not actually, or Miss World is not actually the most beautiful woman in the world. It's as a result of who presented himself or herself in the run for this, really. And the truth is this, not until Nigerians are really looking for what they want in these people, not just because a political party has brought this man and then he's the most popular party around, then we expect some gala like it's used on the street of Lagos. Mm-hmm. They give you some kind of bait, peanuts, and then you start to look in the area of that direction. I must say Nigerians and the younger generations now are looking at governance, politics, political office holders to be people more of ideas that can reform and transform our lives, really. And I must say, and that's why we have a lot of participation on this. If not until we start to look at the process that brings or produces these people, more than the process of this is a political party, this party has done a lot of publicity, then we have to give this person a chance.
But there is a process that brings about the people.
How credible is this process?
Now that's the question. How credible has been our process?
So, okay, so I'm going to give it to TVC for inviting me. Many TV stations will be very worried to invite somebody that is not in the limelight or somebody who hasn't been in the scene for the last 40 years, for example. So thank you for having me. Realistically, when I say the people have got to pay for the kind of democracy they deserve or be paid for the kind of democracy that they get, what I mean to say is, when you allow politicians come around to give you peanuts, they've actually paid for the kind of democracy that you will get. The people have got to create a barrier now to prepare themselves for the true fight, putting themselves in the center to say, we don't want any of this. So we just want you to deliver. And the only reason why they agreed to allow certain people woo them is because there's hunger. Are we prepared to tighten our stomachs? I think we can tighten our stomach. We've tightened it for the last almost three years now. Let's just hold on and see if we can present on the stage more options. Let's not go to the polls in 2019 and say...
Is that the barrier they should create? Is that the only barrier they should create?
That's not the only barrier.
So tell us what barriers?
For example, I think the news media houses should, as much as possible, give airtime to those people who want to speak about policies that they think can move Nigeria forward. I think we should be ready to hold town hall meetings. I think we should invite everybody that wants to run for office to come around to tell us what plans they have for us. I think we should be ready to tell people that thank you for the few naira you're giving us for the next 4 years. We decide not to take them, but we wanted something better. When I know that I can dip my hand in my pocket, no matter how much it is, to give to a community, I have sorted them out for the next 4 years, should I be elected. And that's the truth. So when you do that, you don't come back to that community to do anything for them. But imagine a community that supports you either by goodwill or financially to ensure that you are able to meet up with all the obligations along your campaign process. When you get into office, you're not going to look for every one of them and give them back their 100 naira. No. You're going to provide them with the basics, the social amenities, the welfare, and every other thing that you're supposed to do because they owe you. But when a few people have supported you to get into where you're supposed to go to, the first thing you think of doing is pay them back. And you're not just paying them back based on the monies that they gave you. You're going to be paying them back at an interest rate that only they can determine. And at a return of investment time that only you can determine. So then, when all of this is happening, the people feel the brunt.
So then, how do people... 2019 is before us. Yes. And like you have said, Nigerians, of course, are making up their minds. Now, in the process of making up their minds, this year has a major role to play to determine where they decide to tread or where they decide to fall, align with. But then how do they, like encouraging them or giving them words of advice? How should they go about making their choices?
Okay. Firstly, a lot of Nigerians, I must say, that have their PVCs don't even come out to vote, so we experience a lot of voters apathy.
Yes, because they are discouraged. Like I said, they have heard everything, but Ahmed disagrees with me.
Yes,
but
I disagree.
go ahead.
Okay, talking about they are discouraged, because they could be discouraged because the kind of deliveries they've been getting from those that have been running governments before now, they'll be like, okay, what's really the fate or the hope of continuing to do this? But I must say, not until people start to do things differently. And the only way you could do things differently is, one, we have to, although we beg the media industry to see what they could do to ensure voters' apathy is no longer in existence, or at least is reduced or brought to the barest minimum in terms of people going out to vote for real. And then a lot of Nigerians, I must say, the younger generation that have been agitating, it's also disappointing to know that out of every 5, maybe it's just 2 that have voters card. People that fall between the age of 18 and 35.
Yeah,
and these are people that make about 60 to 65% of our population. Okay, and if we look at 60% of 180 million people, it's far more than the votes we got for both last presidential election from both political parties. The President Buhari won with about 15 million votes. President Jonathan, former President Jonathan, had about 13 million votes, which does not even count to the percentage of the younger generation of youths. So I must say that one of the major things we need to work on that needs to improve or needs to change is participation. The participation rate, although it's increasing really because some awareness are going on by the NGOs and everything, but really government is not helping that because they say that this new kind of voters that will come into the system cannot be controlled.
How?
Okay. Before now, there is almost like a fixed number of people that vote. Okay, and this happens to fall to the class of the illiterates based on the structure each political party had built. Most people that vote before now are card-carrying members of political parties and not even the residents and the populace or the general electorate. Okay, but am I making any sense in this area?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Card-carrying members are those that vote before now, and easily political parties could sway these votes to their side or just do a little to get more. But when you start to have a new generation of people getting more involved in terms of registering, getting your voter's card, and then there is more awareness of you guys just have to go out to vote, and you've got to vote for your conscience this time. You don't have to vote because you're expecting an immediate reward that would not even last you a day or a week.
All right, we'll quickly take a break, Ahmed, and then you come to contribute or comment on that. Stay with us. All right, you're still watching StandPoint, and before we went on the break, Bolaji, you were talking about how participation has become a challenge and you're trying to encourage people to come out to participate. And Ahmed wanted to pass a comment on that.
Sorry, I was trying to interrupt, but then I think really it's participation. You know, the reason why people have never really been interested in being part of the process that presents us our elected officials is because they are not excited about the choices that they would have to make on election days. And this is why we would have to encourage more people to participate in politics. Some people hear politics and they think it's a dirty man's business. So if it's a dirty man's business and you're a clean man, then get into the mix and get it cleaned up. That is exactly the kind of message we have to send to the people. If you know you have the capacity, if you know you have the ability, I expect that you will come out from your shell, stop complaining and start doing. Nothing is going to change if you do not get part of the process. And during the break, I remember we were talking about this this notion that there is a born-to-rule mentality in some parts of the country. There is no born-to-rule mentality anywhere. That the North participates in politics is because they participate in politics. On election days, you go to the north and you see the queues are long from here to Jericho, and people will stay on those queues until they cast their votes. Here in the south, what you see, a lot of people are watching TV just to see how things unfold. So this is what I think we should do. We should all be part of the process. If we're not part of the process will deliver to us the kind of things that we're not comfortable with. So there is no way this system is going to change. There is no way the narrative is going to change if you and I do not find a reason to be part of the process that will change it.
So invariably, Bolaji, 2019 is not going to be business as usual.
Of course, it's not going to be business as usual because participation rate is going to increase. And like I said, quote and unquote, some new votes that are mostly uncontrolled will sway things differently. I am not saying the present system or the present government will have its, won't win the election. They would win, but not with the kind of margin they have before, really. And then
we can categorically say that, but then.
No, he's a soothsayer, so he's actually told you what's probably happen. But I'm saying that the only thing that would make Nigerians put this present administration back into office is if things start getting better. If things do not get better, I assure you Nigerians are going to vote for what they think will give them the kind of democracy, the dividends of democracy that they think they expect or deserve. Until that happens, I assure you this present administration cannot get into office. And we
cannot categorically, I keep saying that word, we cannot categorically say. We cannot categorically say because Nigerians, as much as they want to participate in elections.
Yes.
There are also things that the process, like we talked about, how credible is it? And then when we look at the fact that the process is not as easy as we seem it to be, it might not turn out the way you might be envisaging. Of course, we might see surprises.
Absolutely, and those surprises are what we're talking about. And I am saying this very clearly again if I was misunderstood. If things do not get better, Nigerians will definitely go the other way.
So what are your suggestions for this present government? 2018, it's a new year to make things better.
I'm not going to charge for this because I wanted something. I'm not going to charge. I'm not going to charge for any of the advices I'm going to give. But like I said earlier, to be very honest with this administration, a lot has got to change. The body language has to be right. I expect the governor to have landed Benue to commensurate with the people. I expect him to have been in Rivers, Kaduna. I expect the comments that come out of the president's mouth to be soothing and hopeful. I expect that the economy picks up very, very quickly. I expect that the fuel scarcity never returns. There should be no price hike. I expect that the diversification that we talked about from the beginning is being returned to. I remember at the early part of this administration, some huge billions of naira was taken to the Chad Basin to look for hydrocarbon. Nobody talks about it anymore. Those kind of monies would have been spread across the entire northern region to see how processing plants and packaging plants and storage plants would have been put in place to ensure that at least food is there for the people.
Bolaji, because we're about rounding up.
Okay, I must say that I wouldn't rather offer advice to the government, but I would want to stir the people up to participate more, really, because offering advice to the government is still like limiting the people's opportunity to choose. Okay, so I wouldn't want to be one-sided. I would rather want to open the people's mind into participation. Like I said, you cannot make that changes on Twitter. You cannot make it complaining on Facebook, not until you have your voter's card. If you have it missing, damaged or something, you know the nearest INEC office to you, go get a replacement. And then you should also try as much as possible to encourage your next person to have it and go out to actually...
As long as they are within the voting age.
Yes, as long as, of course. To actually go out there and not just having it for purpose of opening bank accounts, for purpose of identifying yourself as a Nigerian, really, but for the purpose of actually making the right choice for this country.
All right, so for 2018, your advice, I would have to use the word for the government. Because Nigerians have expectation. You have expectation.
A lot of it. For 2018, we really need to look into the area of security, because I must say the insecurity level, or the level of insecurity, is rising consistently. We hear about communal killings, communal clashes, genocides. Let's cover it up. Okay, all of this needs to stop. If governments tackle this and bring security, this would actually bring some comfort to the people to say, okay, at least I can live in a place I call my own, without the fear of either being killed or my rights being trampled upon. Then in the area of the economy, virtually everything in Nigeria is tied around fuel. You want to run your business, you want to go out to work, you want to come back home, you want to do this, let Nigerians have some comfort kind of to say, all right, in the next 2 years, we don't expect a hike in price. We don't expect to have fuel scarcity. I must say, I think for some period we did not experience it, not until towards the last quarter of the year, where this starts to come again. But it just means there is still a problem somewhere.
All right.
All right, and I want that to be fixed. If that is fixed, Maybe
and
things will change
everything will change. All right, gentlemen, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Well, that's how we wrap up the show today. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, you can watch a repeat of the show tomorrow at 7 a.m. I'm Veronica Dan-Ikpoyi. Enjoy your weekend.